still saying good morning. It doesn't matter if we're ready. Hi, come on stage, Sudha, Siri. Hello, everybody. I'm Hayden Hainsworth. With me, my co-presenters, we have Sudha and Siri, and they'll be joining us today to talk about all things production quality and how we manage it through agility and with resiliency. So it's lovely to see you. Thank you, Sudha and Siri. They'll come back on stage here pretty soon. So how's everybody doing today? Good? Good? Cool. We're competing with Mark Rsinovic right now for this session, so we appreciate all of you for coming here today, and of course those that are going to watch us later online. I think I recognize a few familiar faces, but it's lovely to see some new faces as well. And so today, basically what we're going to talk about in our time together is we'll cover the roadmap. Everybody loves roadmap, and our safe deployment approach. We'll talk a little bit about some of our deployment guardrails that we have and the process and flighting that we pursue. We're going to share the latest in our compute infrastructure. I think you're going to be thrilled with the demo that Siri has for you today. It's all about Azure Boost and how we're going to reduce servicing impact a sub-second for you. And we'll talk then, Sudha, we'll talk a little bit about architecting for resiliency. This is a shared responsibility between our customers, our partners, and Microsoft in terms of customer resiliency for the workload, for the application, and the platform resiliency, and how we all plan together for DR and business continuity. And then hopefully, we might have some time for some Q&A as well together. But first, let's talk a little bit about the roadmap and the investment pillars. There are 8 of these. And they inform, really, quite frankly, a lot of our work. This spans standards, processes, and infrastructure. And so with this, it all starts with security first. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the Security First initiative and every employee at Microsoft doing their part to ensure that Microsoft is secure. And so with this, it's also about security agility, ensuring that when there are security fixes that we can roll them through the fleet quickly without impact. And moreover, in terms of the processes that we have, we'll focus today on change management. Siri will talk a little bit more about change management. I'll talk about change management. And then, of course, Sudha will talk a little bit about customer resiliency. But with change management, our aspiration is that 0 changes impact production, and they cause 0 outages. And we'll talk a little bit about the processes that we use and the investments that we have here. And then with incident management, there's a lot that we're doing to support our engineers to ensure enrichment and help them expeditiously, when there is a challenge, obviously manage those incidents. Of course, we have to ensure best-in-class experience with supportability, and we'll talk more about resiliency, more what you can do and what the platform is doing, and of course, capacity management. These are the pillars that inform our quality initiatives and that center every engineer in what we do and how we do it. And so with that, we will talk more about change management, and then obviously with change comes the need to ensure resiliency. So getting into it, we have safe deployment practices and many, many tools to improve downtime. And so there are 3 primary pillars here that inform our design pipeline and our culture. These ground us in our methodology that we use as we build and roll deployments through the pipeline. These can be applied universally to your environment as well. And so we firmly believe in testing in isolation, ensuring rigorous testing occurs with synthetic workloads as well. We have additional gates that I'll show you when we walk through our safe deployment pipeline. As we start obviously with test, and then we move into canary, we move into pilot, and then through production. All of this is gated in a time-consistent manner. And so from prevention, then it's also about protection. And it's about identifying anomalies, identifying regressions. It's about ensuring that we have deployment stops in place, so that if we do detect an anomaly, that we do ensure those deployment stops occur, and that helps with protection. All of this is gated with deployment signals, health signals that we have, and the central correlation and analysis. And we also believe in continuous learning and iteration. And so you'll see that we learn from every outage, big or small. We ensure that those repairs get completed, and it's a continuous feedback loop as we ensure to prevent, protect, and continuously learn and refine. And so quality starts early. It's gated by these rollout systems through deployment validation into rollout and the feedback loop that we have. And so obviously it starts with dev and test. There's a lot that we work with: unit testing, fuzz testing, chaos testing, synthetic testing, lots of testing and validation that does occur. All of that is we have a lot of BCDR drills that we regularly run through. And that's just to build that muscle. And then from there, when we're getting ready to roll out, there is this process that we use called ready to deploy. Are you ready to deploy? Every change goes through this rigorous process where we review the payload and we ensure the testing is complete and we validate it. The payload will be rejected if those checks and balances fail, and then they'll come back. We do have the bill of quality as well. All of this occurs before safe deployment starts. And safe deployment starts in Canary and pilot, and then it moves into what we call medium, heavy, and broad regions. And I'll show you a pictorial on that in the next slide. And then, of course, we have Deployment Resilience Forum. And so this is where we study outages. We learn. We learn from every incident. We identify those repair items, and it's a feedback loop. And everybody is encouraged to attend, and everything is tracked and monitored. And so this is the picture that I was referring to earlier, where we talk about this process for safe deployment, beginning with test and validation. To the left, we have these quality assurance gates that we apply. Changes are introduced, and then it moves through each one of these with a time-based continuum of 24 hours between each to ensure safe deployment. And if a regression is detected, that deployment is stopped, and we fall back, and we start over. And so sometimes there can be some frustration, right? Because you're like, hey, we're waiting for this feature. What's taking so long? Well, we detected a regression. We fell back. We rolled back. And we're going to fix it, and then we're going to move through safely. And so you obviously want to ensure agility, velocity to get things through, but you also want to do safe flighting. And so this nature of being able to move fast and slow when needed and ensure that we start from Canary, which is, quite frankly, where there's no production workloads, to test and validate, into pilot, where we have some early customer workloads, and then into a medium region, and then a large region, and then broadly throughout the rest of the world. We also ensure and enforce availability zone sequencing and deployment phase sequencing. And so there's lots of health monitoring that occurs and service level indicators. The service level objectives are defined, the health signals are there, there's central correlation of all of this as we ensure monitoring, prevention, protection, and continuous learning through this, what we'll call the multi-layer guardrail safe deployment process. And so with that, Siri is going to come on stage, and he's going to talk a little bit more about change management. He'll introduce some hardware innovation where we're going to be able to reduce the servicing impact, which caused pain. Previously, it was around 10 seconds plus, and that, if you experience that, it would cause your VM to freeze to sub-second. And so there's a lot of amazing innovation that has taken place. We're super excited for this moment that we're going to share, and he's going to walk you through some really cool demos. So with that, Siri, why don't you come on stage? Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden. Hello, everybody. I'm from the host and innovations team within Azure Compute. And I'm going to speak about some of the investments we're doing. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about Azure Boost. We introduced this last year at Ignite, and there'll be more announcements around it at multiple sessions throughout this year's Ignite as well. But just as a recap, Azure Boost is a system that offloads virtualization processes from the host onto purpose-built hardware and software. Azure Boost powers many different types of SKUs, general purpose, AI, high performance, and it powers millions of VMs today in the fleet. It provides agility, efficiency, performance, security, but today's focus, reliability and quality. With this dedicated hardware and software, we're able to build infrastructure to be resilient to correctable errors. An example of that is if you have a PCIe bus error or network issue. And we're also able to take advantage of this platform to improve the servicing impact to your workload with minimal to no intervention on your site. We'll get into the details later. As an FYI, in terms of the configuration settings, there's details in our FAQ, Azure Boost. You could search for it, aka.ms Azure Boost. So let's go to the first demo. So one of the most complex updates we have in the system is a network driver update with active workloads sending heavy traffic. Think, gigs and gigs of traffic. How do you update that with minimal or no impact to the customer? Here's a simplified flow of one component of it. We call it Azure Virtual Filtering Platform. It's a programmable virtual switch. This is part of what you might have heard as software-defined networking. That's a critical component that allows you to configure your traffic, filters it, and adjusts it, and optimizes it. So in particular for this quality investments, we invested in a technology called persistent memory. During the servicing of binaries and restarting of that binary into a process, the memory is saved with hot handoff. This new architecture allows us to decouple servicing time as experienced by the VM, whether it's sending 1 gig of traffic, 10 gig, 100 gigs, or in the future 200 and beyond, resulting in 10x servicing time improvements compared to without persistent memory. Let's go to the demo. On the left window, we have the Azure VM running a standard iPerf throughput test at 20 gigabytes per second. On the right, we have a command prompt to trigger the update and measure its impact from telemetry data. So let's have it keep running. You see the traffic continuing to flow on the left. And then on the right, let's look at the telemetry data and see what it shows. So the first one is we're going to look at the log files and telemetry data for UDP connections and how long it takes when this update is happening. And what you will see is that from the log files, we could see that UDP packets were flowing and it had an impact of 98 milliseconds, well under a second. Next, we want to look at new TCP connection. Again, this is a live workload with traffic flowing and we're doing an update. And what you'll see is 255 milliseconds for that new TCP connection during the updates. And when we look at the files, it doesn't show any TCP retransmissions. Both of these are well under a second, and the update happened without the workload being heavily impacted. This is what we call sub-second servicing. This is deployed in the fleet, and you could find out more details on Azure Boost. So that's one update. Another update is planning for the unpredictable or the urgent. So here we're talking about resiliency to network links. Commonly, availability of the switches, most people refer to as TORs or top-of-rack switches. This can be due to a critical security vulnerability that needs to be deployed as fast as possible, or like every piece of hardware, there is some probability of hardware failures. What do we do about it? The key thing here is that Azure Boost NIC manages these results with no impact to the networking workload without the workload doing any custom actions. The key thing there is this is seamless to the user. The user doesn't have to go and say, hey, I detected a failure and do anything in that. And also, for the cases where there's a permanent hardware failure, let's say just the hardware never recovers, what this allows us to do is use the remaining functioning Tor switch to live migrate to a healthy node. This prevents an outage, which some of you might have seen as an E17 error or network not available. So let's see it in action with the demo. So what do we have? We have two Azure Boost VMs. On the left is the sending VM. On the right is the receiving VMs. The first thing is just to show, we can confirm this is a Microsoft Manor NIC driver. That's what you see on the screen. And what we're going to do is to show two scenarios. A very high throughput scenario above 100 gig and another scenario which is under 100 gig. So let's start with our usual iPerf test on the right. It's the receiver. And on the left, we have the sender with 8 connections. We could see about 105 gigabits of traffic from the sender to the receiver. Now, let's artificially force one of the Tor links to go down. And when the link goes down, you can see the workload continues, but the traffic drops to around 91 gigabits per second. It's slower, but still high throughput. This without any intervention in the workload. Next, let's bring the link back up, and you can see the throughput returns to the pre-downtime value. Next, we're going to show a different scenario, which is more typical, which is a workload that's not sending over 100 gig of traffic. It's sending, let's say, 91 gigabits of traffic. In this case, when the switch goes down, and we're going to run it right now, when the switch goes down, there is zero impact to the workload in terms of throughput. The traffic continues as normal as if the switch never went down. It's sort of like the rhetorical question. If a Tor falls in the data center forest and the workload doesn't notice it, did it really fail? And that's our goal. Our goal is to build the platform infrastructure to heal the Tor without the workload noticing it. And again, in both of these demos, there's no special action taken by the workload. It doesn't know, it doesn't need to know. And just to be clear, these are just two small snippets of the amount of investments we're doing in quality across the Azure platform with Boost. We'll have more to share in future sessions. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Sudha to talk about service reliability.
Thank you, Siri. Good morning, everyone. How many of you actually traveled from outside Chicago here? Yeah. Okay, how many of you traveled from Seattle? Nobody. Okay, I'm happy for you. The reason I say that, yesterday there was a major storm which led to a lot of power outage in many places, including my own house, where the fence is absolutely gone and there are roads which are absolutely blocked because the trees fell on the road, and this is a kind of outage we have not seen. Some of the Microsoft buildings in Puget Sound are out of power. All I wanted to say is anyone traveling from King County or Seattle, my empathies to you, your families, and everybody is in my well thoughts. Glad that there are fewer people in the room. But yes, why did I bring up this incident? Why is it important? Because we are talking about resiliency. Today, when I saw the picture from my husband being sent to me with my entire fence broken, a thought came to my mind. We have large trees, and just a few days ago, we cut all the trees. I wasn't happy about it. I love trees and greenery. But what it did to us today, when this outage happened and this storm that showed up from nowhere, none of the tree fell on my roof. My kids could sleep properly. My husband slept properly, and no damage happened to the house. But in certain cases, that has happened. So we were resilient because we prepared for it. This session is all about resiliency. While Siri talked about the hardware resiliency and he showed you the demo of Boost, that sets the stage for how we are protecting our hardware and our services, and we are introducing things in our services which will make your workloads more resilient. However, when we talk about this, there are two kinds of resiliencies we are talking about. This picture tells you two things: customer resiliency and platform resiliency. We come from Azure. We obviously have an added resiliency or added responsibility to make sure that we provide you with the tools, we provide you with the features, we provide you with everything that will make the platform resilient. In certain cases, we are now making sure that things are resilient by default. But in certain cases, we are giving these tools in your hand to make sure you leverage them properly to make sure your workloads are resilient. So there are two elements to it: customer resiliency, where you have to take an action, and platform resiliency. How many of you are still with me? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's it. Thank you, you make it 10. Can I see more hands? Yay, okay, 15. Let's go to the customer responsibility and then we'll talk about the Microsoft responsibility. But since I work for Microsoft, let me start with Microsoft responsibility. What is our responsibility in this entire thing? As I said, people who are working, like people like you, who actually bring your workload or migrate your workload on-prem to cloud, you know what those workloads mean to you. Are they mission critical? Are you working in retail sector? Are you working in financial sector? Are you working for an airline industry? Are you just simply chatting with a person, or you are bringing your workload, which is like air traffic control? If the connection gets lost to a pilot, things can absolutely go wrong. Depending on what kind of workloads you have, you understand the need for resiliency. If it's a dev test, may not be that high critical, but if it is as critical as a Black Friday and you're a retail company and you're talking about inventory management, you want to know where the inventory should be shelved so that none of your customers goes to the store and goes out without buying because it wasn't available, you know how critical it is. For that, you need to ensure that these workloads are set up in a highly resilient way. Microsoft provides features for BCDR. We provide features for zero downtime. We have things where you can be zone resilient by default, or you can make them zonal by doing something or taking a small action, but that is your responsibility. Because you provide these features, I'm biased towards understanding what kind of workloads you have, and based on those workloads, are you using the right resilience setup for yourself or not? That's where a joint responsibility comes in. While we talk about Microsoft responsibility, customer responsibility, we are in it together. The story that I just shared about the fence being completely out because of the wind, this was our responsibility to make sure that our kids sleep in a house which is resilient. But then, I cannot control the storm. Similar to that, when the outages happen, whether the entire zone goes down or the region goes down or a resource goes down, many times it's not in our control. This is not that we plan for, but they happen. And when they happen, are we protected against this? This is where a joined together story comes into picture. So there's Microsoft responsibility, there's a customer responsibility, and together we walk a very fine line to make sure that the entire workload, entire setup is meant for resiliency. So, yeah, if you go to the next slide. Let's just talk about what we have to offer on our platform side and on our services side to ensure that resiliency is available to you either in the form of tools or by default. For example, let's talk about standing in front of you, I take a lot of pride that I come from core, Azure core, which comprises of compute, storage, networking, and many other services. I'll be talking about certain features that we have launched during Ignite, a little bit prior to Ignite, which talks about the resiliency. Let's talk first about the compute. Convert regional VMs to zonal VMs. So basically, you can increase the resiliency of your VMs. In this case, if there is a zonal outage, your VMs will still stay active with minimal downtime, with zero data loss. In addition to that, we have also multi-zone expansion for VMSs, which means you can add more availability zones without any downtime. So you can expand the scale of it. Basically, it's very helpful for stateless workloads. And then you can have resilient create and delete, which means you can auto-recover failed create VM or deleted VM in the scale sets. You can quickly detect any kind of VM operations due to control plane failures. That's just on the compute side. And again, I'm not talking about all the features. This is only about the ones that we consider are highly resilient. Talking about that, there's also a session which is dedicated to the compute. I've listed the number here. In case you have not been there, I highly recommend, while some of this will be covered, there will be way more coverage in terms of compute features. Storage. Let's talk about it. There's a long list of things that we have done. Again, if you're not able to contact your storage, you know what can go wrong there. Customer control failover. This allows a customer to manage their own failover from primary to secondary storage in case of temporary problems, which means this feature is particularly used in the situations where there's a downtime. It could be because of power failures. It can bring down the availability for extended periods. So now you can plan how to fall over to secondary storage, it is entirely in your own control. It gives you more flexibility. You can maintain availability during temporary issues. We also have released something called soft delete and backup integration. It's a new feature for blob and file storage. During accidental deletion or the file corruption, there's a backup integration also available for you for added prevention. So this feature helps to protect against any kind of accidental deletion, and it retains the deleted data for a specific period. The backup integration, as I said, is additional layer of protection against any kind of data corruption and accidental deletions. If we go to the next one, we talk about the live resize for premium SSDs, which is premium disk. What happens here, in this case, it dynamically increases the storage capacity of your premium disk, ultra disk, without any kind of disruption. We also have zone resiliency and force detach, which leads you to, you can attach a new VM in a different availability zone in case there's an outage. Particularly useful if you're using container workloads. Then we cannot end, even if you're talking about resilience, you know we have to talk about AI because AI is important. It's changing the world as it has never been before. We have AI-driven troubleshooting. In our Azure Copilot, we have introduced a new skill set in storage, which is leading to any kind of performance issues that you have. And again, I'm talking about resilience. So I'll keep the topic 2 there, but I'm adding an AI angle to it, which is during troubleshooting, if you're seeing things which are not working, the performance issues coming for your disk, for your storage, you can actually call this AI agent and it will give you the proper, or I would say, the root cause of what is happening, keeping your support volume minimal. Networking. I come from Azure Networking, and there are few people I can see sitting in the room who also represent networking, so I cannot leave this room without talking about it. If you have attended yesterday's networking session, we talked some of these things yesterday, which is particularly the public IPs now are zone redundant by default. We're in 12 regions. As I speak, I heard it's 15. And we'll keep adding more regions. As the more regions comes on board, these public IPs will stay redundant or zonal redundant by default. It's a critical part of disaster recovery. Besides that, we have Network Isolation Chaos Studio. If you know Chaos Studio, you can actually simulate any kind of outages here. These are real-world outages where you can lose connectivity, you can see the data loss which is happening, so basically any dropped connection, spikes in the latency, you can simulate all of these and you can actually isolate the faults which are happening here. You can validate these failover mechanisms and you can isolate, and then by simulations you can protect this from happening in real world. These are some of the things. Again, storage is a separate session, and networking, if you didn't see it, it was yesterday. I'll highly encourage you to go online and check one more time all the amazing things that we have launched in Azure Networking and in Azure Core to look at what these things means to you. Okay, talking about the added responsibility, now comes the what and then comes the how. When we talk about the what, this is where, when we say better together, actually, can I see how many of you are MVPs in this room? Okay. How many of you are actually the customers of Azure? Fantastic, majority of you. How many of you are just here to learn about Azure and then will go home and decide whether Azure is the right cloud for you or not? Good. There was one person who raised the hand, right? Okay. Besides, I hope when you go back, you choose Azure because you have high confidence in the things that we are working on will make this cloud far more resilient and you're protected on Azure. Besides that, all of you who are actually using Azure, my hope is that you build this trust with us and then you go back and tell the world, yes, this is the actual cloud that I wanted to use and I am using the right cloud. Okay. What are the dimensions that you're looking for when you think about the service reliability tiers? Again, as I said, workloads. It's entirely up to you. You decide, you know what your workloads really mean to you. Can you afford any downtime there? I'm sure the answer in this room will be no. But is that true for everything? Probably not. There are certain, there's a cost that is associated with added resiliency, additional things that you will be using. So obviously you decide what is the right tier for you. What dimensions you're looking for. Are you looking for 100% uptime? Are there business functions which are extremely critical to you? And what is the time to recover? Have you set up yourself in a way where the SLA that you demand, you are actually getting that SLA by setting up a resilient architecture? That is entirely up to you. What's the scale that you're looking for? What kind of scale is okay for you? Based on that, you choose the VM size, you choose the kind of storage you want, you decide on the networking architecture. But how is where we come in and we provide you with those tools. Those tools are available to you. For example, you start with resiliency. We have Azure landing zones. Take advantage of those landing zones and start with what the resilient architecture will mean to your workload. Get resilient. If you do not know, I know there's a lot of documentation available, and now we are enhancing our Azure Copilot to give you some kind of recommendation, but we also have Advisor. If you go there, it will tell you based on the kind of workloads you have, how many resources are non-resilient. Take advantage of these recommendations. I'll tell you a funny story. Many times when we talk to our salespeople and say, yes, but we added it in Azure recommendation, why didn't the customer use it? Very simple. Many of the customers looked at the Advisor recommendation and just clicked it. Yes, I saw it, but I ignore it. It's my choice. You know, Microsoft, it's your job to just tell me what to do, but it's my choice to do what I want to do. This is where my humble request, if you see such a thing, at least acknowledge and look at it whether you're going to use that recommendation or not. But that is how you get resilient, because now we are putting the things right in front of your eyes. Stay resilient. Please do. We have failover testing available. We have multiple things available in your hand, like chaos testing and all that. Take advantage of some of these things to stay resilient, because resiliency is not one time. It is a lifelong thing. Once you are set up for resiliency, make sure that you're periodically testing for failover and preventing against any kind of future outages that can happen to you. Azure, adopt the frameworks which are available to you, whether it's Cloud Adoption Framework or WAF, what we call it, well-architected framework, and make use of the essentials that are available to you through our field or through our documentation. Thank you. You know, you guys are in Chicago, and you know what is coincidental about it? How many of you remember, have heard about an outage that happened early this year in Chicago, where the entire edge site went down and the people who were using express route could not connect? How many of you remember? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So not the whole room. The entire site went down, and the people who were using single home, means they had only one way of connecting to that Azure or edge site, could not connect for hours. As I said, the yesterday's storm in Seattle is something that we cannot control. Similarly, if the power outage or a situation like that where the chillers went down because they were frozen because of low temperatures is not in our control. When a thing like that happened, when we were talking about joint responsibility, if many of the customers who were multi-home did not see the impact of this outage. Today, when I stand in front of you, I'm going to focus particularly on the high resiliency for express route, remembering ourselves that the same outage happened very much in Chicago, where you are sitting today, and we are here to tell you what we have done, but taking advantage of what we have done is entirely in your hands. Express route, taking a lot of pride in introducing express route high availability features, which are now available to you in GA. We have basically launched two important features. One is called Express Route Metro. Again, in yesterday's session, both Dave Maltz and Narayan Annamalai, they talked about what are these maximum resiliency and high resiliency features. Metro, basically what it is doing is it is giving you redundancy. We have two links that connects to your edge site. With this metro site, behind the scenes, we'll allow you, when you choose a metro site, one link going to one edge site, another one going to another edge site, basically providing you with edge redundancy. Where one edge site goes down, the second one is still up to take your traffic. So the best part about it is it's available to you at the same price as standard. But depending on what your workloads, I highly encourage you to choose this, because it is providing you with resiliency, site resiliency. Second, max resiliency. The difference between high resiliency and max resiliency is max resiliency also provides you with the redundant links in addition to redundant site. What we have done is we have enhanced our portal, SLI and PowerShell. It's available to you in all the forms, but in portal we have introduced something called guided portal experience. I will demo this so that you can see it live in action. It is not about just the words which are coming out of a mouth, but it is also about you seeing it live in action. Guided portal experience is a connection wizard which tells you how easily you can connect to multiple sites. And when you connect to multiple sites, trust me, you have 2 links going to one site, 2 links going to another site. You are set up for max resiliency, something that I take and I highly recommend if you're using mission critical workloads, this is the right way to do it. Additionally, we have introduced many other things which will make your life easier when setting up for resiliency. This is where I will say I'm not giving you any choice because these things are available to you. If you don't use it, that's a choice you have, but you're also taking a little bit risk on yourself. Seamless gateway migration. So in this case, you migrate your express route gateways to a zone redundant deployments with 0 downtime. This is available to you today in the form of a GA. Fast path with UDR, in this case, you can bypass the entire gateway and connect to your VMs or the VNets bypassing. So route on-prem the traffic without going through the gateways. Scalable gateways is available to you in public preview. This is basically you can scale up, auto scale your bandwidth and the flow count up to 40 Gbps by default. Express route traffic collector for provided circuits, it was available to you anyway on the direct circuit. Now we are providing this experience on the provider circuits. You can have IPFix flow logging on express route traffic collector. Let's go to the demo. It's very easy to say when it's in the slide, but it is real when you see it with your eyes. Improving the network resiliency with express route, and this is where the Chicago keeps coming to my mind. People who know express route or have used express route, basically it's a service which people use to connect from their on-prem to cloud. In between, we have an edge site. It goes through the edge mechanism. From your on-prem, you have 2 links that connects to this edge site. And from edge, connecting it to the customer's VM, you connect it via gateway, again using the 2 links. I talked about 2 things. The 2 options which are available to you when you think about resiliency. Let's talk about the first option, which is basically the maximum resiliency. So when we talk about multi-home, in the multi-home setup, the first option is max resiliency. If you see the first picture versus the second picture, I have added another edge site. It is the same connection going from your on-prem, but it is going to 2 separate edge sites. But the number of links on both the sites is same. You have 2 links by default, which are active in nature, going to edge site A, another 2 links going to edge site B. Again, they're in active state, and they are connecting to your VNet. Highly recommend max resiliency. By default, this option will be chosen for you. However, you have another option available to you, which is called Express Route Metro. In this case, the difference between this picture and the other 2 pictures, you'll see on-prem to 2 edge sites connection, but through single link. While I'm providing you with the edge resiliency or fallback mechanism, the link is just 1, and it connects to your VNet. In the guided portal experience that I was talking about, if you go to azureportal.com and you are trying to create an express route, you have now 3 options available to you. One is called maximum resiliency, another is called high resiliency, the third one is standard. Few months prior to that, only standard resiliency was available to you. You didn't know how to do something else, but today I have the guided portal experience, and by default, the max resiliency is chosen for you. Of course, you can override the option that we are providing you, but we highly recommend not to. In this case, let's say you have chosen maximum resiliency. It means rest of the edge sites which are available that you want to connect to is available to you, and all of them shows the distance and likely the latency that it will give you when you choose the next site. And you choose the next site. Now in this case, you have set up yourself as a circuit, as the max resiliency. You had the choice to set up the site, the next edge site that you want to make the connection to. Let's say you choose the next option which is available to you. That's high resiliency, which is the second best option. As I said, it provides you with the site resiliency but does not provide you with the link resiliency. Remember, it is still a great option. In this case, we have launched it in 3 metro sites today: Amsterdam, Zurich, Singapore. We are not stopping here. There are more sites which are coming pretty soon. In the next 1 to 2 years, we will have a huge amount of coverage. In that case, you can choose one of the sites and behind the scenes, everything is set up for you. So that's the second option. In this case, I'm showing you something which is very interesting. As I said, get resilient, but then please make sure that you stay resilient. You have Advisor, which is meant for you to see warnings for the resources which are non-resilient. You see there are 2 warnings given to you, and both of them at the top tells you these are high impact warnings. Do not ignore. If you have to ignore, you can ignore the low impact warnings, but not the high impact. If you click on any of them, right there and then you have the option to take an action. It means your resource is not set up in a resilient way. If you click on one of them, it will guide you. You're not zone redundant. You can actually be zone redundant. You're not site redundant. You can be site redundant by clicking on one of them. So it is in front of you. This experience is given to you. After that, we have the seamless migration tool available to you at one click. You can choose this tool, and this tool will allow you to migrate your non-redundant gateways to redundant gateways in just one simple click. Isn't it easy to use? As I said, I'm not giving you any choice because I'm giving you options. The choice you have is not to follow it, but don't use that choice. You have 3 different ways to be resilient. So basically, standard, which is what you use, single home, but use it for your dev test environment. I do not encourage you to use it for something which is critical to you, which is where you cannot afford to have downtime. Choose the multi-home connectivity. Either you choose the maximum resiliency, which provides you with link redundancy and site redundancy, or you choose metro architecture high resiliency, which provides you with 2 site resiliency, even if it is not the link redundancy that we are talking about. But at least these options are available to you. This is what is express route for you. There will not be another Chicago. Well, there can be another Chicago outage that has happened in the past. However, I highly recommend you guys that you can protect yourself by partnering with us, by taking advantage of one of these things. Last but not the least, we are never done, as I said. When you have to think about what are my takeaways from this session, why did Sudha, Hayden, Siri kept talking about hardware resiliency, service resiliency, or telling you guys our roadmap about resiliency? Because we want you to go and act on it if you have not set up yourself in a redundant way. Start resilient, use the best practices which are available to you. If you do not know where they are, leverage the workloads that you have, and you go to Advisor, look at the warnings which are being provided to you. Take advantage of any of these things. Stay resilient by measuring, understanding, and improving how the resilient architectures and the options which are available to you by Microsoft. Last but not the least, I want to see the number of hands in this room who actually understand what resiliency is and are going to take action or are going to encourage your colleagues who use Azure to be resilient. One time. I want to see 100%. I can see 80%. Please, 1, 2, 3, hands up. Yay, thank you. Next step, after you're done, when you get a chance, please provide us with your feedback. We are here and we can improve based on that. And then reach out to us behind the scenes or now if you have any questions. And check out the other sections which are available to you. One of them is BRK241 on proactive design and built resilient workloads. I'll highly encourage you. Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to call back Hayden, Siri, my colleague, and myself. Thank you so much, team, for being here. You know what, one thing that came to my mind, there are about 8 or 10 different sessions which are going out in parallel. One of them is Mark's session, who's a CTO. You guys chose to be here. We're extremely humbled and we are very, very thankful for it. Our lesson learned, next time our session cannot compete with Mark's session, otherwise we'll get lower attendance. But I'm glad, you know, it makes multiple smart people in the single room because you chose this session. So thank you for coming here.
Thank you.